Lindsay, if you can go on, and
Yeah.
then we'll see if there's if more DWP colleagues have come on to support Dawn from Cube, and then we'll move things around. Emma, is it all right if you go towards the end of the meeting now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, right.
Thanks, Emma.
So, sorry, just busking it and working it around completely. You don't want to see that. So there's the agenda really quickly. So we'll move things around. I think Tammy Fevier, who's Deputy Director in Policy Division, Directorate, whatever DWP call it, will talk about the national context of youth hubs. And by the way, want to focus the meeting on youth hubs, really. And then Jackie Williams from the snappily called North Central DWP region, which covers South, West Yorkshire, Lancashire and Cumbria. We'll talk about the sort of regional context for youth hubs. And then it was going to be, or hopefully it is, Janet from DWP. And I have to be honest, I don't know which office or JCP she's from. Dawn may know from Cube, and Dawn from Cube, who's a partner working with DWP. So, and then Emma Grimes, very kindly, talking from Beyond Housing, and she can tell you where Beyond Housing is later. And then, as usual, Lindsay talking on sort of national policy update. And it's been recorded. Please introduce yourself. And there's some new people that have joined, so huge welcome to them. And let's crack off on that. And I'll unshare if I can. I'm unsharing. Yep, and there's people waiting in the lobby, and I can't quite master.
I'll try and admit them as well.
Yeah, I can't quite master. Somehow, when you're sharing, you can't let people in at the same time. I don't quite get it today.
Yeah, we can see your screen. We've kind of got double vision.
Oh Lord!
Have you? Oh crikey!
Nobody needs to see.
Nobody's got 2020 then. Hold on, my screen's frozen, so I'm just on whirligig at the moment. So end process.
Good afternoon so far, Simeon, aren't you?
Yeah, it's great. I love it.
Right. Well, I'll be really quick. I'll be 5 minutes.
Are we there yet? I think I've gone out of Teams.
I don't need to share my screen, but we can still see yours, just so you know.
Right. Oh, right. Okay. I'm confused. You carry on. I'll try and sort the IT out. Okay,
thank you. Hi everyone, it's lovely to see some of your faces, and I'll check out the chat box and the people listing as well. I'm Lindsay Sweeney, Managing Director of Communities That Work, and we provide a regular, really brief update on national policy and what we're doing in housing and employment, essentially. So we're a membership body, and we've got a good number of members in Yorkshire and Humber. So thanks, Simeon, for coordinating this group so adeptly, and you always pull in great speakers to the agenda after we've done our spiel at Communities at Work. So drop us a line anytime. Really quick things are, in terms of a national policy update, today is a complete moving feast because the Queen's speech has just taken place. There's 38 new bills, new laws that are planned to go in through government in the next year. I'm not going to attempt to list them all, but you probably will have seen the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, which has some impact on social housing. And for Communities at Work, you'll know, hopefully, that we support the UK SPF Housing Network, which is a group nationally across England of about 450 people from about 300 organisations. It's concerned with the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the role of housing in UK SPF. We held our most recent meeting on Friday last week and provided a little bit of an update on UK SPF as we see it. And there is right now, everything feels important and urgent at the moment, doesn't it? But we're hoping that the social housing sector can use both its existing partnerships and relationships with local or lead authorities on UK SPF, and also forge some new partnerships in your priority areas, in your geographical priority areas, and reach out right now to lead authorities which are listed on the government website along with the prospectus on UK SPF, and make connections so that you can share work in social funding and opportunities. stuff that's included in the Levelling Up and Regen Bill does touch on the years 1 and 2, the priorities of UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So there is some overlap there, and we'll look at ways to kind of increase that understanding. In terms of a real local update, it was some weeks ago, but nationally, a group of members from Communities That Work met with the Minister David Rutley at the DWP, Minister of Universal Credit and Welfare. And he has some oversight of Job Centre Plus in regards to universal credit and claimant commitments and all the rest of it. I'm pleased to say that Living were there, and also Unity, who are both sort of regulars at this meeting. It's been a while in terms of follow-up, but we have just started to mark some follow-up with the DWP. So we just this week have had sort of confirmation, but not yet a date, that David Rutley, the minister, will be up in Leeds. The DWP now has a sort of formal office link in Leeds for the DWP. So that's a kind of official working away from Westminster day that gets logged in Leeds, and we're hoping that at least 1 or 2 of the members up there will get the chance to meet with David Rutley in situ. So rather than hooning it down to Caxton House in Whitehall, he'll be up, and we're following that up in terms of him meeting with 1 or 2 of our members, and following on from the round table conversation we had with David Rutley about the role of housing in supporting people into work, but also into progression in work, and what's involved in that. That's a topic area of strong interest at the DWP at the moment and for the next 3 years, as a result of commitments that were made to them by the Treasury in the spending review. So in-work progression will be an area to look at as a sort of policy area going forwards, and we're expecting to see some announcements and news on that from DWP and JCP colleagues in the coming weeks and months. I'll just do a quick shout out for our members, and I'll put something in the chat box after I've stopped talking, that to remind and warmly invite all of our members to a masterclass which is taking place tomorrow on how best to work with employers, and in this case NHS employers, so creating a pathway between housing and jobs in the NHS. That's being led by Walsall Housing Group, but it's a national event. Looks really good, should be an hour, so it's easy to join, and I hope you can make it. Even if you can't, register and we'll make sure you get the recording. And if anyone's at the Chartered Institute of Housing, CIH Annual Housing Conference in June, please drop us a line. We're there. We'll be having a gathering on the Wednesday, but also up for one-to-one meetings with colleagues across the regional networks. So I just wanted to put a shout out there. So I think that's it. In terms of policy, cost of living isn't going anywhere in terms of a political football. And we'll see what the bills announced in the Queen's speech over this year can actually do about that. It's going to be a long-term issue, so we are engaged in that. Our parliamentarians are engaged in that, and we continue to lead on that, and the UK SPF, in terms of creating a role for housing in alleviating some of those issues and being on the front foot in terms of initiatives to help support households and communities. So that's us. I'll drop a couple of links in the chat box, Simeon, and then I'll watch the rest of the meeting until 2:30 when I have to zoom out. So thank you, Simeon.
Yep. Thank you, Lindsay. Really helpful. And I missed a tad of yours as I crashed my PC and restarted it or something. But no, but I'm not done. Question: was anybody affected on your end, or did Teams just carry on? I assume it carried on. Right. Just if we can sort of move on, Dawn Greenwood from a youth hub, is got to leave at 2:30. So if I can suggest rejigging the whole agenda and putting it kind of completely back to front now. Can I suggest, and I know Janet's just joined, so Janet, could we do the case study on youth hubs first, then Jackie, could we do the regional context, and then hopefully Tammy will have joined and we can do the national context. So do it bottom up this time, as opposed to the normal, which is top down, if you like, in strategic to operational. And then, if it's all right, Emma, go at the very end. Is that okay? Just on sort of rejigging things.
Yeah.
So basically, Dawn, Janet, over to you. Please introduce yourself. I've not met you before until just now, so I know nothing. Right, I'll be quiet now.
You might have just thrown up a curveball there, because I did have a quick chat with Janet earlier saying, oh, don't worry about it, I'll introduce you, you're okay.
It's fine, no problem, Jackie. No problem at all. If I can just explain who I am first of all, then, if that's okay. So I am Janet Clark and I am the West Yorkshire Youth Coordinator. So I chair fortnightly meetings with our Youth Hub work coaches and the team leaders, and also with our YECs, our Youth Employability Coaches and their team leaders. And a YEC is someone who works with our most complex cases, who also work from the hubs, along with the Youth Hub work coaches. And our Youth Hub work coaches work with customers who have got barriers to work, basically. And Cube Learning are working extremely well in several of our youth hubs, which is why Dawn has very kindly agreed to come along and talk about it. So I'll hand over to you now, please, Dawn. Oh, you need to come off mute, I think.
Do it every time, every meeting. Yeah, hi everybody. So my name's Dawn Greenwood, and as Janet said, I work for a company called Cube Learning. Cube Learning being a training provider who deliver traineeship and apprenticeship opportunities. And I am the manager of the recruitment team on the recruitment side of traineeships. So my team are the first point of contact for any young person that's looking and struggling to get into work to come onto a traineeship, and we deal with all the vacancies and filling and matching the young people. So we have been working with the Youth Hub for a little amount of time now, and like Janet says, we're doing extremely well with it. And our programme, so you probably will have heard of traineeships, but for those of you that haven't, I will kind of give an overview about how our programme works, because they all run slightly differently. So our traineeship program, I've worked for Cube for 8 years, and I basically was brought on to start the traineeship contract. So all our traineeship programs, they're aimed at young people who are just struggling to get into work. They've got a barrier to work, whether that barrier is a confidence barrier, whether it's they've just got zero work experience and therefore the CV's getting overlooked. We get a lot of that. A young person who might have certain needs, again, who feels they might be being overlooked, or again, might be knocking the confidence to apply or go for any jobs. Could be a young person. I had a lovely young student the other day who actually on paper, you know, looks quite good to an employer, but they just can't get past an interview. They go to the interview stage, they go to pieces, and that's it, and they're just not getting past. So our traineeship program is aimed at those young people to just give them a bit of a different route into a company. So it's a 7 to 8 week work experience program. So it is unpaid because it is work experience, but obviously if they're on the benefits, they will keep the benefits whilst they're completing the program. So what we do in the youth hubs is we sit and we chat to these young people. We find out what these barriers are, and you know what it is that they want to do. So for example, I was with a young person in Wakefield the other day. He'd been to college, he'd done a level, I think it was level 1 and level 2 in creative media, really creative young man, but found actually there was just not a lot of opportunity in around where he lived. So, you know, he couldn't use these qualifications to progress. And he also was being overlooked for other things like your basic retail that he'd been applying for. So I would say confidence knocked. He'd gone off and done these wonderful qualifications and now sat with them and he couldn't go anywhere with them. So it's my job as part of the recruitment team to go find the placement that is right for that specific young person. So we look to find a traineeship for them that meets the needs, meets the, you know, kind of what they want, the career aim, so to speak. And find an employer that is willing to take them, but it has to be an employer that has a progression route available. So we will not use a business if there is no job, basically. We're not doing this just to give them work experience. We want there to be a progression. So for this particular young man, I had a company already on board with me that it was actually a London-based company, because what I found where he lived in the middle of nowhere. There were lots of nice fields. And I think that was part of his problem, bless him. And he's now got a traineeship with a company who's working on the Yellow Dot Festival in Scarborough. So he'll be doing all the social media, etc. And that will lead on to an apprenticeship in 7 weeks' time, if obviously they impress and they do the right things. When a student goes on to a traineeship with us, so once they have been accepted, and when I say accepted, they have to go for what we call an informal job chat. It's not an interview. They just need to turn up so the manager can show them the premises, tell them about the job role, and meet each other. And, you know, once that's been sorted, we would then allocate a tutor, and that tutor will look after that young person for the whole of the programme. They will do weekly visits in that premises, in that business, and they will deliver employability, interview skills, they'll build a CV with them, and they'll work on their English and maths as part of the programme. And ultimately, they then guide them towards the end goal, which is that apprenticeship or job, depending on what the outcome is. And so really that's what we're there to do. I mean, we've got lots of national contracts, so we run the traineeship program for the likes of, so we do the Specsavers, we do WICS, so the WICS up and down the country, all their traineeship programs are ours. We deliver traineeships for the Department of Further Education themselves. So we just did a trial in Coventry, went exceptionally well, and all the students that we put in went on, and they're now in apprenticeships in the DFE, and we're just about to open that up into the other areas. We do Foot Locker. I've just got the JD Sports contract, and I'm just waiting. We've just won the BBC contract as well. So we've got a lot of big names out there, but it's not always about the big names. We look at the smaller businesses in and around where that young person lives. You know, it just depends on what they want. We bring new business on every single day. I don't think it's difficult to bring employers on. We just need to make sure as a company we're bringing the right ones on, and they're doing it for the right reasons, and that being that they want to take a young person, mould them, develop them, and progress them into employment with themselves. And yeah, we go around a lot of the different youth hubs. We're in Wakefield, Huddersfield, Bradford, Nadine, one of my colleagues, is over in the Nottingham one. And basically when we go in, people are booked in to come and see us, and you know, as we will try help every single person that sits with us, that wants to work, you know, and I think we do extremely well. You know, we're very passionate about what we do, and I think that as success rates kind of demonstrate that when you look at how many people go into work with us. You know, we're well above average in success rates, and yeah, just a wonderful programme.
Thanks very much, Dawn. And the work coaches love working with Cube, and you give them really, really thorough feedback actually, and tell the coaches exactly what's happened with that young person, which I know they really value. And a youth hub is about partnerships. We can't do it on our own. So without the likes of you doing an amazing job. And one of the coaches actually told me about how you intervened with a young person who was on a traineeship, but they had health problems and they were finding it really difficult to do it full time. So I know you spoke to the employer who agreed to actually run it part-time, and they've engaged again, and they've got hope, and they're willing to get into work, which is what we want and what we're there for. So thank you very much for all you do for us in the Youth Hub.
Oh, thank you.
I do have a few examples of good news stories if you want to hear them from the Youth Hub. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
Is that right?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Lovely. I won't go too long because I could go on forever for these. There's some really good stories because they're doing amazing, are the coaches. There's an autistic young man he came in with his mum actually. His mum said, no, I can't do that. Can't do that. Oh, no, won't be able to do that. Oh, no. And the coach actually spoke to that young person away from the mum actually. And it's actually the Bradford Youth Hub, and they've got an IT suite next door. And they've got specialist equipment where the young person could actually use that equipment, and they're coming in regularly on their own now, and their confidence is actually sky high, and the mum actually can't believe how far they've come on. And this person actually, get ready, Q, because this next step is a traineeship, so you're definitely there. So please have a word with the coach there.
Certainly will.
We've also got a customer who's blind. So the coach works with their support worker, and they've actually organised cane training for this young person, and they now feel confident enough to go to college 3 days a week, which is brilliant. It's always about moving them forward, and obviously the end goal is to get them into work. And we've got a deaf customer who wouldn't leave the house, and really their confidence was really on the floor. But with specialist software, again in an IT suite, they've started doing an IT course, and they're flying on there, which has built the confidence massively. So much so actually they're now volunteering in a cafe 3 days a week. So that's what hubs are about. Hubs are about partnerships. We've got lots of young people with anxiety and depression, and we're not specialists in things like that. So we bring the expert partners in, and we work together collectively and help that young person holistically. But I will give other people a chance to speak this afternoon, but thank you very much for listening to me.
Thanks, Janet. Right, Jackie, do you want to segue in now on the regional?
Yeah,
I haven't seen Tammy come in yet, but I'm sure she will
Okay.
soon. I think she
Yeah.
said 2:30, so it's still early.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're well. I think I've been on one of these forums before. So for those who haven't seen me, I'll just sort of the region that we talk about that I'm covered as a group partnership manager is Lancashire, it's Cumbria, and it's West Yorkshire, and it's also South Yorkshire. But I work very, very closely with my colleagues in the North East as well. So what I'm about to tell you, I can say that it's very, very similar in the Northeast. So just sort of filling in, I guess, a bit of background for what Janet and Dawn has said. The youth hubs, they are part of the youth offer. Forgive me if you already know this, but the DWP Youth Offer was developed to combat the youth unemployment, and it was really to try and ensure that our young people, they do have the skills that when they go out to look for work, they find it and they keep that employment. And part of the youth offer, there's 3 elements. So one is the youth hubs that we're here today to talk about. The other part is the youth employability coaches, and you know the DWP, they all like an acronym, so we call them the YECs. And the other one is the Youth Employment Programme. So just a little bit about the Youth Employment Programme. It's a 13-week programme. It's designed to help our young people in receipt of universal credit at the moment into various opportunities such as into work experience, traineeships, apprenticeships, further education. And it's normally for those young people who come on board that are really job ready and perhaps don't need too much help in sort of moving closer to that labour market. So I know earlier Janet mentioned the Youth Employment Coach, or the YEC. They're a funded role, and they've been brought in, and their aim is to support our young people who have multiple barriers. So them barriers are preventing them to, finding the work that they want, and it is an intensive support, and it's one-to-one. And there's various ways that they can support them. But the most important thing there is that it is one-to-one. It's in-depth one-to-one support. So they can highlight suitable courses. They can build their confidence in order for them to go on these courses. There's other opportunities to develop their employability skills. They very much advocate for the claimants with employers and providers. So sometimes employers, as we know, may not want to take a chance, but these youth employment coaches will stand up for these young people and try to get them to give them a chance. And the other thing, and I think which is really good with this, is no matter what opportunity that young person takes, we don't leave them there. We continue to support them, and we continue to work with them and build their confidence. And I say we, the YEC. And then the third part of this, as we've mentioned before, is the youth hubs. So I think you may have seen recently that across the country we've achieved 150 youth hubs, which is a massive achievement. And across West and South Yorkshire at the moment, and I'll say at the moment as we are today, 2:30, we have 8 live youth hubs with a further 5 in planning. So these youth hubs are what we like to refer as co-located and co-delivering. So that's with 40 separate partners. So the co-location, sometimes it's not feasible for us all to be in the same room, but we'll be the same premises, and the co-delivering as well. And I think Dawn mentioned about that journey. And this is something that we've really focused in West and South Yorkshire about having an individual tailored journey for that young person who comes into the youth hub, and that's to look and to sit with that young person and identify the barrier or barriers that they may have, and then we create an achievable journey that addresses them barriers, and that is through the support of a range of our partners. And I said, as my colleague said, that we cannot do this without all the partners on board and that huge collaboration. And I think one thing that we do find is a lot of the times it's not just about skills or jobs, that the barriers are. It's around housing, it's around money matters, mental and physical health. And we can help them because we have the right partners on board. And I think it's crucial, and we've acknowledged that in West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire, that how important that is for us and for our hubs to work. I mean, the hubs are evolving, they're changing, they have to change because, we've just come out of 2 years of COVID and the landscape looks completely different. So we look at what we refer to as a place-based approach. So we look at evidence around our customer characteristics, the employers, the partners, the labour market trends, and what funding opportunities are out there. And then things sort of basically drive, I suppose, where our youth hubs will be, the kind of partners we will work with, because it's all about then supporting our young people, but ultimately supporting our communities as well. We've done a piece of work in West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire quite recently, where we've just gone in and looked at ourselves with our partners and where can we improve, what can we do. Simple things about the location, the room, the area. We're trying to create something unique, something that's different from a young person going into a job centre, to create that more relaxed environment where they want to come in, they want to speak, they know they can access a lot of our partners. And just one note, what I will say is our youth hubs, you won't find two that are alike. They're completely different, obviously based on our customers as well, but we have purpose-built youth zones where we've got our partners and ourselves in there, the DWP. We've got small rooms because the demand for youth hubs there, we don't have the room, but what we do have is, as I mentioned before, the location. We're all in the same building and we can all hold the young person's hand as we take them through their journey. I think really that's probably where I was going to hand over to Janet to give you the real life stories and the real work that they're doing in the hubs on every single day. So I'll hand over to you now, Simeon, if Tammy's with us.
Oh.
Didn't catch that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
No, because I double clicked and I took myself off mute again. Apologies. I can't see Tammy in yet, and my computer seems to be going a bit skew whiff this afternoon. So we're sort of cutting up the natural course of events and things like that. But I'm sure Tammy will come in. She's just got waylaid on something else, probably. So Emma, would you mind doing your bit?
Tammy's just arrived, I think.
Yes.
Oh, has she?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Tammy, you're there. Perfect timing.
Majestic time. I'm so sorry, guys.
We're having to move the agenda around and things like that just to suit certain speakers, but you've come in exactly the right moment. So absolutely, all yours. I'll shut up now. So Tammy, just for intro, we're doing it bottom up. So we've done the sort of local case study, how it works in West Yorkshire. Jackie Williams has talked about the sort of what is a youth hub and the whole youth offer and the three components and things. And now we're up to sort of strategic policy side of things. So over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure Jackie's covered it all, actually, and sort of far more lucidly than I was. But I think, you know, it's probably a few things worth reflecting on. And I suppose for me, just based on the conversation actually I've just come out of, and I don't think I'm sort of betraying any kind of, you know, government secrets necessarily, but part of what we were discussing, sort of the team just now, was around almost trying to get together a bit of a compendium or bit of a kind of handbook around what we learned through the Plan for Jobs experience overall, and you know, to help us be a bit more responsive, recognizing, you know, we, like many organizations, suffer a bit with the organizational memory aspects of all of this, but knowing that, you know, economic downturns are not unique. The kind of nature of them probably is slightly, and that's obviously what necessitated, you know, things like, you know, the big focus on young people and Kickstart in particular, that, you know, obviously still, you know, youth offer definitely part of that, but also kind of, you know, how we can you know, better understand and kind of make sure that we can put in place the things that will best support people depending on the nature of the downturn. And I think, you know, sort of thinking back to my days, so I was doing labour market policy in 2008, actually, the kind of last recession. So kind of when I joined this job in sort of, you know, summer 2020, sort of Plan for Jobs was kind of flavour of the month, and trying to talk to stakeholders, you know, Tony Wilson's of this world and Institute for Employment Studies, sort of saying, I'm the new guy, saying, no, actually, you were here last time, so kind of no excuses, crack on type thing, but very different natures, weren't they? So kind of when you think about that kind of downturn, we're concerned about obviously the wider impact on kind of, you know, all of society, but actually the people that were falling out of the labour market. Remember, Jackie, the kind of the professionals, weren't they? And the kind of actually we realised that we weren't quite able to respond as well to that. I think what we found certainly this time around, and certainly what the, you know, initial projections, and obviously kind of none of us could tell what would definitely happen by the nature of the kind of COVID, you know, induced downturn, but what we did know is that there would certainly be challenges for our young people that we needed to make sure we addressed, because we all know about the kind of long-term economic impacts of scarring, you know, on our young people. So kind of, you know, the broad economic messages, you know, if you're kind of, you know, challenged by long-term unemployment as a young person, and that kind of has a lifelong impact on you in your sort of, you know, career trajectory, even when things get better. So kind of the imperative to really invest in supporting our young people, you know, was clear at the outset. You know, that's why, you know, lots of money and attention was sort of focused on Kickstart, but for me and mine, it was very much around how we could build on the Youth Obligation Support Programme, the kind of predecessor programme, but almost thinking about kind of not just the what, so the kind of youth employment programme that Jackie would have talked you through, kind of very much that kind of evolution of the old YOSP, in terms of actually kind of, you know, how we have that kind of focused intervention with our young people through our job centres, but realising we needed to do more than that, actually, and a real opportunity to do that. So I think I don't want to be kind of that horrible civil servant or sort of, you know, government agent that talks about kind of, you know, there's opportunities in all challenges, but actually in this space there was genuinely an opportunity to try to do things better, on a more national level, and building on the good practice that actually existed, you know, in patches, you know, in Jackie's patch, in other areas across the country, in terms of how we're engaging our young people. So, you know, youth hubs very much at the heart of that. We know from things like the family intervention projects, you know, supporting families, you know, those of us that have been around the houses a long time in social policy, certainly, you know, the core of this is joined up local service delivery. So for our young people, engaging you, those that need it, not all of them, recognising, you know, the kind of those people who might need that extra help, engaging them outside of that job centre environment, which isn't always the nicest place to be in. You know, they're much better now. I've been to some REAP sites that are very fancy, Jackie, so I'm kind of looking forward to going to a few more. Certainly kind of not quite as it was that people might remember, but thinking about not just taking those young people who might benefit from that support out of that job centre environment, but almost where we are taking them out of that environment, well, how we can do that in a way that almost means that we can really hone in on the support, that the wider support that's available, recognising that kind of no man, woman is an island, isn't it? That kind of, you know, we know that kind of if you guys are housing these and having good stable housing is a real kind of, you know, foundational base to kind of being able to do good upskilling and do good job search activity. You know, if I've got mental health challenges, and actually those are the types of things that might need to be addressed in advance of or alongside my sort of taking my steps into employment. We know these things. It's kind of, you know, it's the kind of the evidence is all there, but certainly through the youth hubs and the, I guess, the buy-in from DWP ministers, of which our Minister for Employment, you know, Mims Davies was a real sort of advocate, wasn't she, Jackie? And still is, actually. She loves this model. But, you know, kind of it. Very few things get me excited as a kind of civil servant these days, but the fact that we have a national network of hubs working in partnership with kind of organisations like yourselves and football, you know, sort of football clubs and, you know, kind of local colleges and all sorts, actually, kind of, you know, local authority premises, you know, the whole gamut, having that joined up local service delivery in place on a national level is almost more than we could have hoped for, isn't it, Jackie, when it comes to kind of, you know, kind of where we were in that kind of sort of plan for jobs and kind of where next for the kind of how we support our young people, because it has a real enduring base. We recognise that, you know, we've had to do it on a bit of a shoestring, and the main offer that, you know, that comes from us as a department is very much around our people and our expert sort of work coaches and the kind of employment support they can offer. But there is something around almost kind of that at the local landscape level, how we can all collectively work together at local level to support that individual. And, you know, if I think back to my sort of troubled family, sort of supporting families sort of past, there was always that kind of, what was the reason for Job Centre Plus being part of that kind of wider conversation? It's because for a household in particular need, you know, you can apply that just as much to a young person in need, you shouldn't have to be making a choice between whether you come to see us in the job centre, recognising that, you know, that's kind of necessary for you to kind of, you know, meet your conditions of entitlement and continue to retain your benefit, or your housing appointment, or your the social work appointment you've got for your kind of eldest child who's having particular problems at the moment. It shouldn't have to be a choice between which of those government agencies is all shouted at the same time that you engage with first. And so part of that co-location of services means that actually we are able to better communicate, to think about, okay, what works. I'm seeing, and Jackie, I'm sure you're seeing, that kind of the bouncing of ideas, actually, that kind of, I've got an individual person in front of me. I've had experience, you know, kind of, you know, Jackie and her team might have had experience, you know, kind of, you know, in the work environment, you know, you guys actually thinking about actually what it means in terms of actually supporting them into housing, etc. We've all got our unique perspective that almost makes how we offer and deliver that support for that young person much, much richer. And so again, I sound like I'm eulogising, but I think there is something behind this that, you know, we shouldn't denigrate the fact that we have been able to get this over the line at national level, that you've got massively strong buy-in from, you know, all of our ministerial team on this. I was at a youth justice roundtable with Mims Davies, when was it, last week or the week before? They all blur into one the weeks. She's kind of extolling the virtues there when we think about, you know, our children leaving custody, you know, kind of our children that are at risk, etc. We're already thinking about actually this as a model, you know, thinking about where our careers advice sort of comes into play around this. You know, there's lots of work happening in DFE around, you know, kind of next phases on and how we better kind of upskill and, you know, support our young people to be thinking about the art of the possible. You know, embedding aspiration is the post-it note I used to have on my desk when I did have a permanent one back in the day. But, you know, also the kind of thinking about there are other groups of people who could benefit from support being delivered in this way. So I think one of the things I heard most recently, I think it was from a colleague in Manchester, actually, kind of looking after ESF support, was kind of, when we've done our analysis or kind of, you know, our deep dives, young people will benefit from this kind of engagement outside of the job centre, but, you know, older workers as well, actually. So the kind of, and actually when you think about, once you've got those services established, then I think the art of the possible for us is to think about how we really consolidate those, make sure that kind of the hubs that we have that are primarily focused on young people are delivering for our young people, those young people that are part of the DWP claimant population in the vernacular, but also those young people who, you know, are at risk of becoming sort of, you know, are long-term unemployed as well. We do think there's an opportunity for us to collectively think about how, you know, our young NEETs perhaps might be able to kind of think about access accessing those services. Obviously, we need to manage numbers, you know, there is something for us to think about there. But I think that is something that we'd like to explore in terms of how we could potentially expand this model, see how it could work. And as I say, the art of the possible in terms of actually this being an enduring part of the infrastructure, I think is there as well. I think it's not just about us setting out what could happen. I think my certainly policy team want to be as facilitative and supportive as we can be, and certainly, as I say, we've got the buy-in from our ministerial team on that front, but equally kind of thinking about this through the lens of what works from your perspective as well, as lead partners you know, in this front. So I think, you know, we can all bring a lot to the party, she says, it's slightly sort of colloquially, but actually I think just DWP and Job Centre Plus, and you know, colleagues like Jackie and her teams, as brilliant as they are, can't do it alone. And I think that is the key point around all of this. We know that our young disadvantaged people, or our young disabled people, or young people from ethnic minorities were struggling pre-pandemic, are still struggling post-pandemic. So again, we need to do something different. This is a real opportunity for us to do that, to make sure those young people who are at risk are kind of able to kind of access that support in a way that's kind of reflective of their needs. And I think, you know, kind of thinking about how we can move that journey and that path on together. So those are my main sort of, sorry, slightly cheerleaded today, but actually kind of those are the main points I wanted to convey, that kind of there is very much buy-in for this approach. I think there's something around, you know, making sure that you guys, you know, sort of, you know, from the social sort of housing community are kind of engaging with your Job Centre Plus partnership teams in your local areas if you think this is something that could be beneficial for you. I think, you know, Jackie, as I understand, it's kind of partnership manager pages on kind of job help and employer help, so should point you in the right direction of your sort of lead local partnership contact, and they'll be your conduit into Job Centre Plus proper. Again, you know, we might not be able to say yes to everything, because I think, you know, we've just got to be mindful of that, but I think we want to be as supportive of it as we possibly can be. So if there are things around consolidating perhaps with other partners in areas perhaps that we might want to think about, but those are all the kinds of things that certainly your partnership managers will be able to help out with too. I'll stop there. People, I could continue on wanging on forever, so I won't for now.
Right, smashing. Right. Thanks very much, Tammy. There's a bit of feedback. Right, there's no longer feedback. Thanks very much, and a huge enthusiasm, and clearly very much from the heart and everything, and from Jackie and Janet as well, and Dawn, who's now left. Is there anything you want to come back on, Jackie, in terms of the regional perspective, or open it to questions? I know Helen from Living asked a question about how could she get in contact with the youth hubs in her locality, which is the South Durham area. And then is there any further questions for Tammy on the sort of national perspective? Or general DWP, if I can throw it to Tammy on that, and Jackie on sort of regional perspective, or Janet on the very sort of local West Yorkshire perspective. Just open it up. Is there anything you want to say more, Jackie?
Yeah, I'll just come in. I'm happy to facilitate any inquiries from anybody. Helen, I'll pick up. I've got your email now, so I'll get you in contact with the partnership manager there, and they can talk about where the youth hubs are. I'm really sorry, I don't know where they are in South Durham, but I will always find somebody who's got the answer for you. Yeah, I think just again from the regions, West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, you know, Tammy said it is a great passion. They are fantastic. They're working. We've been out. I've done lots of visits, and I was quite humbled really when you not just speaking to the partners, but the young people that are in there. It, you know, it reminds me of the old youth clubs. If you ever went to one, it might be me and my age. But it was really good, smiles on faces, trusting, a really, a wonderful environment, and that collaboration as well. That's DWP, that's local authority, and the providers. It's one big team, and in every youth hub that I went in, that's exactly what I got. It was fantastic. But yeah, and guys, if you've got any questions around contacts on partnership managers, I'm happy that I and my team will take that away and put you in contact with the right people.
Is there any sort of questions from the virtual floor, if you like? No, right. I'll pick up if nothing else, the continuity announcer. Just picking up on Tammy, it isn't a question, it's just a comment. So it's been brilliant working with Jackie over the last few months, and in January we had a sort of session which Jackie led on, which was broadly for those that attended then, and I appreciate there's some new people today. So what is the DWP offer in employment? And then from consultation with all of you, what particular areas would you like some sort of further deep dives in? And youth hubs came up as one. Another particular one by several people was on sort of disability and employment. Yeah. And what I find, and Jackie and I are going to sort of focus the next session on July, the 10th of July, on that. So you can sort of put a pin in your diary for that. You should all have this in your Outlook diaries, etc. already. But what I found really interesting was Tammy mentioning the model of youth hubs, the multi-agency working, the sort of independence, inverted commas, from the JCP, being used in other demographic cohorts. You mentioned older people. I immediately thought of health and housing, and I know Jackie's going to focus on that and some really good case studies at the next meeting of this in July. And you know, Jackie just threw me a stat which I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie, 1/3 of all universal credit claimants sort of fall under the health, the disability, whatever terminology you use, and employment, be that mental in particular, and I suspect increasing, but also physical. And there's a whole wealth of different needs for individuals through that. And clearly that cuts across all ages and ethnicity, etc., groups as well, where people live.
Yeah. You're exactly right on that, and I think, you know, really sets on a really useful session actually to have. And I think for me and mine, so kind of my portfolio is the kind of you know, youth and all age skills. Is the kind of, you know, kind of there's, I don't know, having thematic policy areas like that in this department means that kind of, you know, you trump on everyone's lawn or sort of, you know, some words to that degree. So at the moment we are thinking hard around, you know, as you'll talk with Jackie and the team about sort of next time round. The third relates to declared disability. So there's a kind of things that we're already seeing, you know, come through. We're seeing lots of young people with dyspraxia, with undiagnosed mental health conditions and the like, actually kind of being supported through the youth hubs. So that's already happening and happening well. Obviously, there's a whole range of disabilities, obviously, but, you know, I think particularly on that side of it, you know, seeing lots of that come through, that engagement that's happening on the ground between, you know, the case conferencing, the approaches being used around where that disability employment advisor is able to support, you know, those specialist youth employability coaches and others who are there, you know, within the hubs to kind of support those young people. We're already seeing quite a lot of that happen in practice. We're working with the policy teams, you know, as Jackie will know, we've kind of, you know, got a bit of extra cash through the spending review to kind of, you know, do a bit more about our support for people with disabilities. So again, you know, as much as thinking about what that means in terms of the kind of Job Centre Plus delivered offer as it stands, we're also kind of exploring really sort of live kind of what's the intersection really between those young disabled people who would be able to benefit from that support in the hub, you know, what would that service offer look and feel like? Is it almost an add-on for kind of the young people that are already coming through, but, you know, also recognising the kind of some of the challenges around the physical environment that we need to be mindful of in that space for some young people there. So I think, you know, there's nothing stopping us from thinking about how we can use the existing model in the way it's been designed. I think we're probably a little bit further away from a kind of getting to a kind of another bespoke delivery model offer, but I think, you know, it's really the right time to think about it. And I think some of the things that are happening around, you know, outreach and GP surgeries and things like that, you know, thinking about, you know, some of the really exciting pilots that I'm sure you'll get into when you have your session around that's happening across the joint DWP, Department of Health and Social Care, sort of, you know, lots of activity happening in that space around sort of, you know, what works really more broadly, recognising, you know, what works for people with one form of disability won't necessarily work for another, but actually kind of what does that look like as a kind of gamut of services services and service offerings that can best support people. So I'm sure that'll be a really rich session. And if it's something that of interest to ministers, as you'd expect, but certainly the Minister for Disabled People, Minister for Employment, very much, you know, excited and interested to find out what more the kind of current hub model could do as regards young people, young disabled people, and then on. So yeah, sounds like a really good subject matter. So I'm happy. I won't get stuck in next time, Jackie, because I'll just wang on again. But no, I think really useful for you guys to reflect on.
Brill. Is there any more comments from Jackie or Janet, or questions?
No comments from me.
Nope.
No,
Okay.
No comments from me. It's just working
wrap
really
that.
well, really.
Yeah. Thanks, Janet. Let's just wrap that up a bit. So huge thanks to Tammy, to Jackie, to Janet, and clearly to Dawn. And also thanks. There's an invisible colleague of Jackie's here that really kindly arranged it all. Jackie was on leave until yesterday and passed it very nicely, I'll put it that way, to a colleague, Paul Johnson, who I was in contact with last week, who behind the scenes, who's not on today, did all the knitting, if you like, and brought in Dawn, etc., and miraculously it all got organised yesterday, hence a bit of busking today type thing. So thanks very much. So if I can, and by all means stay on if you want to, if not, just clock out, and Emma from Beyond Housing will talk about what they as a landlord do to support employment and skills. Okay, bye Jackie, Tammy. Over to you, Emma.
Thank you.
And share away,
I'll
et
share
al.
my screen, yeah, just
We'll see if this works after our
test earlier.
practice. Yeah.
Does that work okay?
It's coming. It's looking positive. It's not there yet.
Yep, I can see it.
You see it? Yeah.
Right.
Okay, then I'll make a start. So, hi everybody. I'm Emma Grimes, Employability Manager with Beyond Housing. So I'll just run through. So just to tell you who Beyond Housing is. We were established in October 2018. The two legacy organisations that came together were Coast and Country Housing and Yorkshire Coast Homes. We cover the Tees Valley and North Yorkshire area. So in terms of Tees Valley, it's predominantly Redcar and Cleveland. And for North Yorkshire, we're talking like Whitby, Scarborough, Filey area. We employ over 800 staff, and our purpose is to help customers succeed and thrive. In terms of our employability services, we provide one-to-one employment support through a number of funded contracts, which I'll move on to talk about later. We provide volunteering opportunities, and they can range from more for like health and well-being. We've got a facility that you can see one of the pictures there. It's Westfield Farm. So we have quite a few volunteers there that help out in an IT suite, or they help out with the gardening and doing some woodwork. But then we do arrange volunteering opportunities in the main offices in a number of service areas such as income management, independent living, so quite across the board, which is really good. We have our apprenticeship programme that sits with our employability services, and then obviously we are responsible for work experience and careers fairs. We've just currently been reviewing our work experience offer because we're finding that all schools and colleges are a bit ad hoc as to when some don't want work experience, some do, and so we've developed two types of taster weeks. One's like a trade taster week, and the other one is more office-based taster week, so we get to go around different areas of the business and experience different trades rather than it just all being purely electrical or plastering, and we're seeing that finds well. So we're proposing to have 4 slots within the year as to when we would advertise work experience opportunities for people to apply for. So this is a few of the team. So the team in total is 19 members in the employability service. A large proportion of them are through funded contracts. I think it totals about 12 that are working on the funded contracts. So they weren't originally core team members that have been brought in purely for funded contracts. There's a small proportion of the team that is core and is there to like co-locate and support across both sites in terms of apprenticeships, volunteering and work experience. So looks a bit busy that screen when I look at it now, but in terms of the funded services that we deliver, we have 4 programmes that are funded, 3 of which are in the Scarborough area and 1 is in Redcar and Cleveland area. So the one that's funded for Redcar and Cleveland is New Directions, which is the Youth Employment Initiative, which we've been running for approximately 6 years now. And that's just recently had another extension that will take our delivery to July 23. So the Youth Employment Initiative, as most are probably aware, is working with 15 to 29 9-year-olds in the area. The 3 programmes that we have in Scarborough, one is through the Action Towards Inclusion, which is building better opportunities. And again, we've ran that for a number of years with some big lottery funding, and that's due to end June next year. So that's been quite a well-established programme, but it's very much a programme that is really probably, like we said, those that are furthest away that have a lot of other barriers that we need to address before we can even start talking to them about employment and training. It could be physical, psychological, financial, housing, just like the colleague earlier was saying. So that's been a well-established programme, quite a small contract for that. The other 2 programmes that we have are called More for Eastfield and Fresh Start Future You, and they're through community local-led development programme. Again, there's an officer assigned to each project. More for Eastfield is purely for Eastfield residents. Fresh Start Future You covers the whole of the Scarborough area. They're both providing one-to-one support to customers. The More for Eastfield project was a partnership approach, so there was some key partners within it, Sparks, Future Works, who work with young people. So we all had quite a bit of all there to provide one-to-one support, but probably all had a certain different role in terms of where that customer was, whether they were close to the job market or furthest away. And that was obviously the intention of that project. So for us, for Beyond, for More for Eastfield, we were originally going to be working with your more amber and green customers. It started in January 21. It wasn't a great deal, wasn't ideal having a project start within the pandemic, but what we were finding for ourselves for Beyond, those green customers had gone, and we were all starting to see more of the amber and the red customers. Fresh Start Future You, again, that was due to start March 20, just as we were going into lockdown, and the focus of that project was going to be talent team, working with local employers to sort of raise the profile of hospitality in Scarborough, and get people trained and ready to sort of move into those opportunities, and for those unemployed customers to raise their aspirations, for them to see that there is some career opportunities within hospitality. It's not all about stood on your feet all the time and 0-hour contracts. So we had to pause delivery on that for a little bit due to obviously the lockdowns and obviously how hospitality was hit. So we paused it for about 6 or 7 months, and then took the decision with the funders that really we couldn't go back to hospitality. So hence it got rejigged, and it's this Fresh Start Future You, which is really just about one-to-one support, but attaching it to some sector-specific training where we've got a cohort of people for that, and keeping our links with local employers in the area. Both those projects with the funding requirements are due to come to an end in December this year. So just a bit of our performance for last year. I won't go through all of these, but we supported 311 customers with information, advice and guidance. 112 we got into employment, and 120 took up training. We still managed to sort of keep volunteers in at different points of the year. So we achieved our target there, and there was 4,340 volunteer hours given. We had 37 apprentices in the company, and there were 9 new apprentices recruited last year. I think in terms of, if I was start thinking about our one-to-one employment support programs, I think the strengths of it, and probably like many of yourselves, it's very much a people-centered service. It's relaxed. It obviously supporting those customers to deal with a number of barriers to help them move closer to gaining an employment or going into education or training. We've got good links with employers in the area to look at what opportunities that they may have. And then, as I say, just purely as being a housing organisation, we are able to address a number of issues internally for the customers. Some of the challenges, I would say, in terms of the employment support programmes, probably lack of referrals from the job centre. I don't envy the work coaches at the moment. I think there's a lot of provision out there for them, and then they obviously will have the pressure to sort of put customers onto their own provision in terms of restart jets, etc. So I think it is difficult. I think where I compare from the two areas, where obviously Youth Employment Initiative was well established prior to lockdown, in Redcar the referral numbers from the job centres aren't as strong as what they were previously, but we are starting to see those pick up. On the other side of Scarborough, we get very little referrals from Scarborough, and we're putting it down to what provision is out there, and probably starting two new projects in a pandemic is where you're not being established previously. And like colleagues have mentioned earlier, obviously the customers that we're dealing with are so furthest away, and they do have a you know, if they were had mental health previously, that's obviously just with the pandemic has obviously made people even worse. There's a lot of apathy. We are seeing an increase in mental health and no digital skills. Our customer satisfaction on our employment support programs is at 90% at the moment, and you can see there from some of the quotes that we've got when we've been doing our surveys that how people do benefit and value the service that they receive from us. And just to touch a little bit on our apprenticeship programme, as I mentioned earlier, we've got 37 apprentices within the business. We took on 9 last year, and we'll just be looking to take on sort of 8 this year going forward, with a bit of a split across Scarborough and Redcar. I think fair to say, I think it works well, our apprenticeship programme. We've got a good retention rate that you can see there, that's 92%. Part of that, I would say, is because we do have a dedicated resource, which was Emma in the middle there on the previous slide. So she's really, in fact, the work that she does is really supportive for both the apprentice and for the managers and team leaders that take an apprentice within their service area. She'll do regular reviews, provides a bit of pastoral support, and as I say, support to the managers. So that I think does really help things. We're very keen in terms of providing as many opportunities for our apprentices to help them determine where the long-term career bit will be, and very keen to sort of encourage them to do enrichment activities. So they're recently, obviously, they've been out to like Go Ape and some team building days. So we like to bring them together as their own team, as the apprentices. We pay the national minimum wage. So currently that's £6.83 in the first year, and then the second year that increases to the real living wage, £9.19. So I think that's a fair and sort of attractive offer for anybody looking to want to take up an apprenticeship within Beyond. And then it's just a couple of our success stories, as it's hard to see there, but that's Natasha Bluck there on the left. She joined us in September 2019 after she'd finished a marketing degree at university. She really enjoyed sort of working with a hand, she said, and then she sort of said that her mental health had suffered, and so she needed to sort of change her career. She's shown total commitment and determination in completing a level 2 joinery. She's now progressed on to a level 3, and we always get fantastic feedback from Natasha and the customers and the mentor that she works with. So she's there. Hopefully she'll go far. The gentleman on the left is Liam. He again, probably he's just been recently successful in securing a full-time position within Beyond as a plumbing. He started back his apprenticeship back in August 2016. I think he had a bit of a rocky start, it would be fair to say, but he's completed his level 2. He went on then to complete his level 2 in plumbing, and he's now achieved his level 3 in gas certification with us. So that's good for Liam. And that is it for me. If there's any questions, I'll stop sharing the screen.
Thanks, Emma. Hugely, really interesting. Has anybody got any questions before I launch in? Has there been any in chat? Let's just check. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong bit. My computer's so slow today. I don't know why. Chat's gone blank for me. No, there isn't anybody at the moment. Any questions? Okay, I've got 2. Emma, you took a huge amount of volunteer hours, clearly goes in. Who are the volunteers? Where do they come from? Are they other residents, tenants, etc., etc.?
They're a mixture, and a mixture in all ages, I would say, young and old. Some of them just purely come for their own sort of well-being. We do see with some of the older customers that volunteer, they tend to do a bit of work at Westfield Farm in terms of the gardening and the woodwork, and I think that is definitely, you do see with those customers that it's for the well-being. Some of the younger ones have sort of come in just to get some experience and put something on the CVs. I was talking to a lady today. Well, I'm here in Westfield Farm today, and one of the ladies there is she started volunteering here on our reception desk at Westfield Farm, and then she went and has gone on to do some volunteering with our independent living services. But I was asking her how it's going, and she was absolutely buzzing, loving it. And she said, I've applied for a job, so we've all got our fingers crossed that she gets a job in independent living services, because that would be just a great sort of progression route to see. So we do get a mix, and I think some people just come in to sort of give something back, pass on some of their skills and knowledge, particularly like say around sort of the gardening and the woodwork.
Brilliant. And another question, I mean, the geography you've got is really diverse. You've got, if you like, urban but small Redcar area, and huge sort of traditional post-industrial poverty, if you like. Yeah. Then lots of rural going inland, and a bit on the coast and hidden poverty. And then Scarborough, which is a complete mixed bag. In all fairness to Scarborough, it's got an awful lot of poverty and drugs and other small town issues and things like that. Always has had for many, many years, despite the sort of grand hotel image of it, etc., etc. And so clearly there's lots of challenges in that, and a wide geography type thing on linking it up in 2 local authority areas in particular. But also, did you do anything when Redcar Steelworks closed? What was that? It might be longer than I think actually now, 5 years ago or something.
Yeah,
we did. Huge hit to the town. Did you do a huge amount?
Yeah, it was probably a partnership approach, because in Redcar and Cleveland we've got what it's called a working together partnership. So it's made up of local authority, employment skills leaders, training providers, colleges on there. So as soon as obviously that news hit, at that point in time, our team structure was a bit different. It was community investment, but we were doing some employability stuff, and we were doing work hubs, and obviously we had the farm here. So we really just put some of our sort of resources from the work hubs in to go and help those local people that needed some support. I think it was Stale House and Poynton's just over that way, but partners were asked obviously to go in and just give whatever support they did, and we did. But then we continued that, and because we were doing work clubs, we were out in the local libraries, so South Bank, Grangetown, and people were coming in to see us. I can't think about the numbers, but the numbers just on the work clubs just massively increased over that period.
Right. Okay. Cracking. Is there any more questions? I suspect there might not be. Right. Well, Emma, huge thanks for doing that. Really appreciative. Would you mind sending me your presentation so I can circulate it afterwards? And just for information, I'll circulate this, and because we're recording it, a YouTube link, which isn't on public YouTube. I'm no expert about YouTube, but it's on Efficiency North YouTube, as it were. But everybody can access it if they want, or forward it on to a colleague and things like that. And so I'll kind of wrap it up a bit. And sorry, it's been a bit disjointed, as it were, but we've got there in the end. There's a few new people that have joined this meeting, and I just wanted to say welcome. There's a lady called Ellie Patience, who's the new business development manager for the Housing Employment Northeast hub. There's Ian McGovern from Southway Housing, which is based in South Manchester. And there may be other people, but I particularly sort of picked those people. So welcome. Secondly, colleague Peter's just put a satisfaction survey on. It is literally 3 or 4 questions on Happy Face. It's just really useful feedback from us, and anything else you want to say, good, bad, or ugly, if you like. I've got fairly thick skin, and more in particular, what topics would you like to hear from? And I'll try and find the speakers. My emphasis to try. In organising these things, it can be quite time-consuming and difficult to get good speakers, but more than happy to do so. That's my sort of contribution to these meetings. So, and I have already said the next meeting will be on sort of disability employment that Jackie Williams is very kindly organising, and she's really excited because she's personally very involved in some disability projects and very much new ways of working in DWP. So that's the 12th of July at 2 p.m. as always, and that meeting will follow the standard format. I think that's everything. So we're finishing 10 plus minutes early, so that's good news. You can grab a cup of tea or do whatever you want with the spare time. So thanks all for attending, and we'll put things up on the website, as I've said. Next meeting, 12th of July, smashing. And please give us some feedback by email, use a customer sat survey, etc., etc. We got a few responses last time. Overall, very positive. Thanks. It's sunny here. I hope it's sunny with you, wherever you are. Okay, smashing. Goodbye.